Happy to be together. And I was just kind of thinking about what we might focus on, and I thought it would be nice to do a little review of some of the basics once again. Always good to begin anew and remember the ground of this practice and what it is that we're actually supposed to be doing here. So I want to start by talking for a minute about posture and the importance of sitting upright. Now, the Zen practitioners, Zen masters are very upright. You may have noticed that. And there's something that comes from sitting upright that has to do with seeing clearly and experiencing whatever is arising directly because of how we sit. And so, when you're really trying to pay attention to something, how you kind of like sit up and get there, it's like that. That's how we sit. We sit as if we're really paying attention. And when we do sit this way, we're facilitating awareness. We're facilitating clarity with how we position our body. So we align ourselves with ourselves, and we don't slouch. This isn't exactly, we want to be comfortable, but it's not really exactly a time to, kind of like lay back. It's really a time to sit up and place ourselves consciously in a position that is comfortable, but is very upright. And this uprightness, when the spine is straight, and of course, like me, I have a pillow at my low back. I'm sitting on a very particular kind of cushion. My knees are at the same level as my hips. So it's a right angle. And then my feet are directly underneath my knees on the floor. I have a pillow of zafu supporting my feet. So everything is supported. And, we do what we need to do to support ourselves so that we can be comfortable and relax while at the same time being very upright. And so this uprightness, when the spine is straight and there's no tension in the body. Another place sometimes we hold tension is in the arms. So like for myself, if I'm sitting the way I am, as I just described, I have my elbows underneath my shoulders, not stretched out in front in some way, but underneath my shoulders, and my hands are resting gently on my thighs. Well, there's a lot of ways you can arrange your hands for meditation. And if you have questions, we can talk about it later, but just for myself, I'm sharing what I do in case it's helpful, which is just a very simple, just resting the hands. Sometimes it's nice to put your hands together because that kind of like joins the experience in a different way. I'm going to ask you to turn your, thanks, Ruthie. So when we are sitting like this, the subtle energy can flow much more gracefully through the meridians of the body, the subtle energy meridians. And this is something we don't talk about much, but is incredibly important for a spiritual practice, because what we're doing is we're coming into the experience of something more subtle than our normal everyday reality. And that subtle energy is connected to the breath and the energy of transformation. And there's all the meridians and chakras and all of that. So that's maybe another conversation. It hasn't really been a big focus of my own practice, but it's there. And it's good to remember that it's there. To be a good vessel, because that's what this is about as well. And we always talk about being a vessel here in this particular Sangha. So being a vessel, creating the conditions for us to have the experience of awakening. So then when we find our seat and look into our posture and adjust ourselves however we need to be comfortable, then we practice in a way that we can be still and not be moving around and scratching our nose every 2 seconds and wiggling and doing all that sort of thing. We come into stillness as part of the practice. And the reason we do that is because when we can still our body, it facilitates our mind also becoming still. And as you all know, the mind is a very busy place. So this is also part of the practice. And it's nice to stop once in a while. Okay, so then another point has to do with concentration. This is not a time to just sort of let the mind kind of wander here and wander there and think about this and think about that. That's what we do all the time. This is a time to do something else. And the practice of mindfulness is a practice of focusing our awareness on the breath in a concentrated way, so that we really are concentrating, and we're practicing to be aware of our breath as it comes in and goes out. And that's the object of our awareness, not our thoughts. Thoughts are very interesting and they capture our attention very easily. And so do feelings. But to find that gap between the thoughts where awareness is, we need to not entertain our thoughts and feelings constantly. So they can inform us, and they are very much a part of what happens in the process of transformation. But in the case of our training, we come back to the breath over and over again. And in that way, we train our minds not to go wandering off in 10 directions. So it's sort of like we take our seat and it's like, okay, time out from all that. We're going to come back to the breath and this kind of single pointed focus with full attention, coming back over and over again. And we train ourselves in this way so as not to be distracted or carried away by our reactive emotions or anything that comes our way day and night. So finding the stability in our seat and in our bodies, in our minds, in our breath, that place where we can rest awareness in the midst of all the storms and challenges of life, finding our center so that we're not pushed away with whatever might be arising. We take our seat, we stop, catch our breath, and connect with this precious life force energy that flows through us day and night like a wave. And when we pay attention to the breath, we make a connection between the body and the mind. We bring it into oneness. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. So we take our seat, we sit quietly and in a stillness, aware of our head on our shoulders, our hands in our lap, our spine, any holding in our bellies, in any part of our body. We breathe into that and try to release it so that we're not holding tension anywhere. And the actual practice with the breathing is to actually focus entirely on the breath. And again, when I do this, it's usually about 4 seconds on the in-breath and about 4 seconds on the out-breath. The main point is to breathe deep and slow with ease, not efforting, just resting with the breath and counting the breaths in on the in-breath, 1, and out, 1, in, 2, out, 2, going all the way up to 10, 1 to 10, in and out, deep and slow. When you get to 10, you start over at 1. And Thich Nhat Hanh teaches this for children with little pebbles. So he's got 10 pebbles on the left side, and every time you take a breath in and out, you move a pebble to the right side. When you get 10 pebbles on the right side, you start moving them to the left side. So it's sort of childlike, maybe, or simplistic to practice like this. It may seem that way. It's training. It's training for our busy minds. It's usually true for me and everyone I know that we might get up to 4 or 5 and realize we're thinking about what's for dinner, or the cough, or how I wish I could go outside, or what he said to me earlier today that's still bothering me. And I'll go off onto that. And then I'll realize that I was somewhere between 1 and 10 and I forgot where I was and I have to start over. And you don't make a big deal, you just go back and start over. This isn't a time to entertain those thoughts or feelings. It's a time to practice concentratedly with the breath. So see what happens, see how far you can get with breathing in deep and slow from 1 to 10. And allow it to be held in the spirit of training, in the spirit of mind training, practice. We can't hope to become skillful at anything we take on unless we practice it. So it's a way of training, and the practice of mindfulness leads to freedom. When we can let go of our worries of the future, or our fears and regrets about the past, or our sorrows and our griefs and our, the things that eat away at us for the period of time that we are in this seat. We know that they are there. And we know that when we practice like this, we are developing the capacity to be there even more for those things, with more of ourselves and more understanding, instead of that kind of reactivity that comes without awareness. So we return over and over again to the present moment through the breath. Whenever we notice that we're distracted, we come back. We just come back. Take another breath. Begin anew. And in this way, we start to form a different kind of relationship with ourselves. And even in just a few seconds, once we become familiar with this mindfulness practice, when we even just remember to take one breath, we're already free. We're already at the other shore, the shore of liberation, from the shore of suffering to the shore of liberation. Usually the mind is in one place and the body is in another. But here we bring the body and the mind together through the breath. And it's a gift that we give ourselves to come into alignment, to come into our center. And it's a miracle when we do. Life reveals itself. And it's so simple. Now, breathing in, I'm aware of my body. Breathing out, I release the tension in my body. Breathing in, I'm aware of my mind. Breathing out, I return to the present moment. Breathing in and breathing out, one. Breathing in and breathing out, two. Breathing in and breathing out, three. And the walking meditation is another way of bringing the body and the mind together. So we walk with awareness. We feel our feet and our lungs and our body and our breath. And we take a step. And we practice integrating the breath with that step. Breathing in and stepping, and breathing out and stepping. Breathing in and breathing out, walking, making contact with the earth, moving our body with the breath. And that too facilitates the thinking mind from relaxing, or to relax. We're no longer lost in the thinking. We're on the path. We're not really walking if we're lost in thoughts. We're lost in our thoughts. At one step like this, and we're free. We have arrived. We are home right here and right now. And so we train and practice to come into this experience knowing that when we do return to those other things in our lives, and I hope you all have tasted this, that you have more clarity, more awareness to address those things that need our attention, that need to be done, that we need to think about, that are asking for us to resolve in some way. We'll see much more clearly when we're in alignment with ourselves. So this mindful awareness is the energy of transformation. It's so simple. But we have to have energy to draw from in order to make the changes that we want to make in our lives. We want to plant the seeds that will facilitate that transformation and bring about that sense of peace and freedom. Our consciousness is like a big storeroom filled with all kinds of seeds. And so through the practice, we plant those little healthy seeds in the depths of our consciousness to facilitate the work of transformation. And much of that happens all on its own. But sometimes we need to water those seeds. Seeds of peace, seeds of joy, seeds of loving kindness, of patience, instead of the seeds of all the negative habits and attitudes that really never help us. And slowly, slowly, we begin to realize that I'm sort of changing. I'm not so reactive, or there's a little bit more peace and calm in my life, or I'm seeing things differently or more clearly. I think it was Thich Nhat Hanh who talked about how joy and calm and beauty are like renewable resources. They give, and they renew us, and they restore us. So we have to find those resources within us and around us, and not take them for granted. Oh, the awareness that we're talking about, this mindful awareness, is unconditioned. It's in the Tibetan teachings, they talk about the nature of mind is spacious and pure. So we practice and we train to touch that place within ourselves. And we simply rest in a state of being and open. And slowly, slowly, that state of being begins to permeate our lives. And we can taste the joy and see the beauty that's all around us all the time.